Bosses of Reddit, what's the craziest thing you've seen an employee do? So I manage a small weld shop. Generally, I don't care about less than clean background checks or pot, as long as you come into work every day and get crap done. Finding reliable welders is difficult, so a lot of crap flies. This sometimes leads to weird employees. This one guy we hired stopped showing up. After like 3 days, he walks in the door. He's bright red from being sunburnt to hell, and his clothes are torn to shreds. Dude was drinking on a little aluminum boat and somehow got lost at sea. He looked like Tom Hanks from Castaway. He didn't have cell phone reception, so he wasn't able to call me, and he did take a bunch of pictures over the few days he was lost at sea, though, including one where he was being rescued by the Coast Guard, and I decided to give him the rest of the week off. Coast Guard took him to the hospital, too. He checked himself out and immediately came into work. Didn't even go home and shower. Odd dude. Next story. Had a see-through water bottle that was filled with vodka. He started the day off fine, but was legless by lunch. Drove him home 40 minutes each way because he couldn't afford a cab. And I talked the owner out of firing him, and instead we helped him get into a program. That was 4 years ago. He's the production manager now. Model employee now, in fact. Next story. Back when I was a gas station clerk, my manager would deal drugs while on the clock. He'd take people into the back office to talk to. We all knew what he was doing, mostly because he all but admitted it. And because we all knew, someone eventually said something, and then the company tried to make him take a drug test. He just quit instead. Next story. A girl in a non-pediatric hospital job. She was like 19 or 20 and kind of weird. Apparently, she had a crush on me, but I brushed it off because she was weird, and obviously that was unprofessional. I knew she came from a relatively messed up home, but she was fairly normal outside of being goofy and awkward. One day, she got caught giving a patient a BJ in his room, and my first thought was, oh my god, this is a pediatric hospital. But luckily for her, the patient was 18. There are some kids with congenital disorders who see specialists all their life and aren't just suddenly dropped on their 18th birthday. They sort of slowly transition, and he was one of them. And that was unfortunately the beginning of the end for her, as life became a train wreck afterwards. She soon got knocked up by someone else, gained like 100 to 150 pounds, and had a severely autistic child. She's constantly posting on Facebook, and it's the saddest crap ever. Like, anyone want to have a play date with my son and I? 0 comments or likes. Then randomly she'll just have massive breakdowns about how hard it is to have a severely autistic child who can barely walk. Her kid is 4 or 5, and how she has no friends or anything. It's horribly sad. Next story. Was cashier manager at a big box store. There was a useless kid that finally stopped showing up. A few days go by and I see him walk in, so I assume he's going to come up front and we can do the whole formal exit process since he missed shifts. Well, he never comes up front. Nobody has heard from him. So a few weeks go by and we just terminated him. I go back to the lunchroom one day and useless kid is sitting there. I ask what he's doing and he says he's on break. I'm like, lol, no, you stopped showing up weeks ago and were terminated. And then he gets up to leave and goes back to work. I confirmed with all of the managers that he was fired, not working in another part of the store, and he shows up in the lunchroom again a few weeks later. Well, turns out he didn't want to tell his mom that he doesn't want to work, so he kept letting her drop him off. He'd hang around in the lunchroom for a bit because his mom is apparently friendly with another employee, so this way it looks like he still has the job to his mom. Okay, and so what happened? Did he get found out? Is this still going on? Did they remove him from the premises? Sometimes Redditors don't give you the full story. So I'm going to have to make up a resolution. I feel like eventually his mom found out, made a public display at the store, the cops were called, and somebody accidentally got hit in the face. Elbowed in the face by mistake. That's what happened, and he's grounded. Anyway, next story. So we noticed that she was falling asleep a lot at work, so that got all of our attention. She usually took 10-minute naps throughout the day, which isn't a big deal because you can have breaks, but our alarms went up. One of the employees had a crinkling beer can in the bathroom one day. Saw her come out of the bathroom and checked the trash cans 10 minutes later. Beer confirmed. Also, some weird blood spots on paper towels too. We searched her belongings and found several other beer cans and a funnel. Noticed that she didn't have any alcohol in her breath. And then we realized that she was butt-chugging the Miller High Life to get lit at work. Next story. As a sergeant in the Army, my unit was out on a 2-week field exercise. One of my soldiers decided to drink a dozen boxes of shelf-stable whole milk. He gets sick and has to go back to the rear. We find out later that he is quite lactose intolerant and knew it for years before going to the field. He bragged to some of his buddies about the scam, and one of the other NCOs heard him. That started the investigation that got him demoted for malingering. Next story. Went out for smoke breaks like 5 times a day. Eventually got to a point where he couldn't wait to get outside and would light up in the elevator to get a head start. 2 days after that mishap, he took his lunch break and came back very drunk. I think he worked a grand total of 7 days hired to fired. Next story. So 4 of us are in a different country augmenting for a few months. I'm the dude in charge, and one of the guys under me is a 21-year-old starry-eyed kid. He's partying pretty hard, but he comes to work and gets his job done, so whatever, no big deal. One morning, he doesn't show up for work. I go to his hotel room, and the cleaning ladies let me in as he wouldn't answer the phone or door. And he is butt-ass naked on the floor of the bathroom snoring. Cool, he's alive. Best I could tell, he was sitting to poo, tried to puke between his legs. We've all been there, right? What actually happened was he missed with the puke, it was on the floor, he passed out, he was laying in the puke, and there was a delayed response on the poo coming out while he was on the toilet. It was also on the floor. There was also a wet, empty pizza box in the shower. Other than that, the room was immaculate. Edit. Since this picked up, I've got another story about this guy. He had gotten super into lifting weights. He was average skinny fact, walked with ILS, and constantly talked about his macros, how much his biceps had grown. But they hadn't, like at all. But he was a sheltered kid and just wanted to be cool, so we let it go. Bear in mind that the other people at this job are generally in pretty good shape. Then one of the IT guys calls him out and brings out a measuring tape. Now this IT guy does F all in the gym and is one of those I don't give a crap about how I look kind of guys. And then the IT guy beats him out by like half an inch. Old boy says to remeasure, and he remeasures, and the kid is flexing so effing hard, he starts farting. 3 hard farts. It smelled like poop, but he swore to God it wasn't. It was the end of the day, and that was a high note, so I released everyone. Next story. We had a guy that would vanish in the middle of the day for roughly 3 to 4 hours, then return at the end of the day. Come to find out, he would go home during that time, play with his dogs, smoke weed, and then come back to work. When we had to sit him down and explain he couldn't just leave, he totally flipped out on us and told us all to go F ourselves and to effing fire him, he said. He got a warning and still works here, and HR still does nothing when he disappears. Next story. Nothing too crazy, but pretty stupid. I had a girl that worked for me at a mortgage company, pulled the credit report of her ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend, no idea how she got her social security number, and then went on the girl's Facebook page posting messages about all of her debt and past due accounts, as well as the crappy kind of car that she drives and so on and so forth. Got an angry call from the girl who ended up being a pain in my butt for a while. Edit. Forgot an interesting part about this. We fired the girl, and about a week later, an agent from the Department of Treasury comes in asking questions about the girl. Turns out she was being investigated for a series of fraudulent things, including operating as a loan officer without a license and taking a bunch of federal student loans in her grandfather's name. He wanted information because in investigating learned that she had been fired from the company for some sort of malfeasance, and he wanted the details. She went to jail for a while eventually. Next story. Took a temp job leading the Santa's Village at Bass Pro Shop while waiting on my contract to start at my career job. The people you hire are usually interesting. One girl on her first shift was on her phone as I walked back to the department. I wasn't in uniform yet, but told her, "You aren't supposed to be on your phone on shift." And then she screams back at me, "Who the F are you?" I walked away, clocked in, wrote her up, and came back to her with her write-up. And she turned out to be one of the better employees. Next story. I had an employee call and tell me that her mother died. Well, I got an anonymous phone call from someone telling me she was lying, so I called the number I had on file to send my regards, and I get an address to send flowers. In the meantime, the office had collected an envelope of money to help with the costs of the funeral and missing work. When I called, the mother answered and was shocked to find out her daughter used her death as an excuse to go to Vegas for the weekend. When she returned, I held a big meeting with everyone in the office and presented her with the envelope of money and flowers. She took it and fake cried. Then I called her into my office to reveal that I knew and fired her and took the envelope back. She said she didn't give an F and then left. Next story. The owner's nephew was brought on to be an assistant manager. In the same night, he effed some random floozy on the office desk, on top of the staff paychecks, and when we closed up for the night, he stumbled into the bar next door where I was having a nightcap with industry friends. He didn't see me there, but threw his credit card down and said, "I'm a club owner, I drink here for free." And he kept shouting that until he was asked to leave. He didn't last long. Next story. I used to work with this girl that would watch adult content as she was operating her machine. She'd prop up her phone on the control board and just watch it as if it was a sitcom or some crap. Coworkers went to her supervisor to let him know, and he said he would have a sit-down with her. She was oblivious to the fact that watching shows on your phone while you work was prohibited. let alone adult websites.
See, this is where this woman effed up. You don't just pull out the videos and start watching them all nonchalant and casual. You pull out the adult dark fantasy novel, I know about those ladies, and you start reading that, because most guys are just gonna be like, oh, okay, whatever, she's reading a book, she's enlightened, but she's actually reading about the milking farm book. Do you know what I'm talking about? The milking farm? Don't look into it. Don't look into it. Please don't. Anyway, next story.
So, company hired a contractor to take on some database development. The guy was hired as a senior database engineer contract to hire. He was 53, so he's had experience. But he did so bad on a project that we had to ask for forgiveness from a client, refund all of their support hours, and have our junior developer, who was later promoted due to good work, redo the contractor's 2-month project. It took the junior dev 1 week, 35 hours. Next story. 3 out of 5 members of my team were caught sleeping multiple times, twice in front of clients. The other 2 team members actually took pictures. They knew they were in the wrong, but kept it up anyway. Well, I finally got the pictures and showed them to my boss, and he called a meeting. In said meeting, the 3 of them argued that their privacy was invaded, and who took the pictures, and this is unacceptable. I simply said, you're sleeping on the job and we're giving you a warning. They do good work, and I didn't want them to lose their jobs over a really stupid mistake. Today, though, those 3 guys feel like they were outed and snitched on. Next story. The owner made me cut hours while keeping his son on at full time. As a silent protest, everyone took an extra long smoke break that day. When I went outside to corral the troops, I overheard the craziest thing. An employee defending me against the charges that I was a weak ass kicker who failed to stand up for them. He's got to feed his family just like everybody else, she said. And she continued to defend me, even after the others labeled her a quisling, which was really crazy given the state of education in America. I'm shocked they even knew what that meant. So a quisling, for those of you who don't know, is a traitor who collaborates with an enemy force occupying their country. It really popped up after World War II, and it was the worst thing you could call a politician for a while. I heard the word for the first time last month watching Corner Gas. Thank you, Wanda. Anyway, next story. Had an employee that was always falling asleep while riding around from job to job. It was time for him to get his CDL for the company and had to travel about 2 hours away for testing. Halfway into his trip, we checked where he was, and the truck had been running for an hour, about 45 minutes from the test site, at a truck shop. Had to call a gas station attendee to go wake him up. Still hadn't contacted me, though. About 30 minutes later, we get a call from a guy that he had run off the road. The company name and driver is on the side of the truck. We checked the GPS, and it showed him driving 70 miles per hour down to 20 miles per hour right around the time the incident happened. He ended up passing his test and making it back to the shop, though. And I asked him, what the F is he on? Heroin? He said, no, I was smoking meth all night. Honesty isn't always the best policy. Next story. I have so many stories about this one dude. Me and my former boss interviewed him for a position in IT, and I got a really weird vibe from him. But my boss was really impressed by his CV. Lots of stuff like Cisco certification, course teacher, and I was about to quit, so I didn't really put up a fight about it, and he was hired. Well, day 2, he brought in a 3-foot-long RC helicopter and put it into his office. Day 3, he was told to order a laptop for himself, part of the job was ordering IT stuff, and bought the most expensive computer he could find. I'm talking titanium and a $10,000 price tag. Day 4, he ordered an office chair in leather with built-in massage stuff. Day 5, big argument with my boss, and he was told that he couldn't do anything without me approving it first. Day 8, he told me he wanted to apply for public IPs for every single piece of equipment at all the company's offices, several thousand IPs, because the NAT sucked. Turns out he didn't know what it was. Cisco teacher, remember? Then day 9, he changed the domain admin password to a password some dudes at a IRC channel had told him was the most secure password in the world. And around day 15, he told me he needed time off because his girlfriend had left him for his RC helicopter instructor, and he was scared she would take stuff from their apartment. There is so much more. He was fired a few weeks after I left, though. Last I heard, he was selling VPN services to people using his own home broadband connection. Next story. This guy always tried to hide at work to avoid working. One day, I was looking for him, and I stepped into the bathroom. I noticed a shoe print on the back of the toilet, and I look up, and one of the ceiling tiles is pushed a little to the side. I climb up there, and this MF is hiding in the ceiling. Next story. Not an employer, but mine sure was pissed. We had a coworker that called out of work/left early all the time, bawling her eyes out because her dad was in and out of the hospital in a very bad condition. And we all felt so bad for her. Rushed to cover her shifts, offered whatever we could do to help. Shortly after, I got a different job. I heard she had called out for a whole week because her dad had died, and she had to help plan the funeral. The company sent their condolences, we all offered our help and some more. Then a few days later, another coworker checked this girl's Snapchat and found dozens of pictures of her and her friends going out to clubs and partying all week long. Then, shortly after she brought this up to the GM, they saw her dad walking around the mall our store was in. They talked to him and found out he'd never even had the flu that whole time, much less been in the hospital. She got fired. And then she text spammed the other coworker and said to her, "Please talk to the GM. I know I effed up, but please, you gotta help me." Next story. Not a boss, but one guy I used to work with was mentally unstable, as we later found out. At first, he seemed normal, but after a while, he just kinda snapped. Started talking about, "Just wait till my dead brother gets here, and we're gonna shoot up the place." And also warned my mom, the secretary, it's a family business, that he was gonna go get a gun and light up my brother. Told the secretary that he wished there was a firefighter-type pole leading from the upstairs office to the shop floor so he could land on a specific guy's head and jump up and down yelling, "Punish, punish, punish." One day he taped up the windows in the garage door separating two sections of our building. He would routinely hit walls and part washers. One of the strangest things was after a bad storm one night, he came into work and apologized to my dad, the boss man, for the storm. It was his fault because he got angry and broke a walking stick, which made God mad and sent the storm as punishment. After we finally got rid of him, after he ended up being put into a psych ward, my parents were in our small hometown about 30 minutes away visiting family, and they saw him at a gas station. On the way home, he chased them down and my dad pulled over to get out and find out what he wanted. Not a smart idea, I know, but it turns out he wanted to apologize for everything and that he was back on new meds to help it all and ask for his job back. Before he went crazy, he was a really nice guy. Him and I got along really well. But guess sometimes you never know. Next story. I am a supervisor for a pretty strict, no-nonsense German company. A lot of our employees have constant feelings of despair and let it be known. Some situations that have happened are below. Poop smeared all over the bathroom stalls every day for weeks. Carvings in the bathroom wall of tyranny, despair about a certain manager is not God, competing company pays much better, etc. Admittedly, the company treats employees badly. An employee's car was totaled when a neglected light pole fell onto it. The company refused to pay for it, and it has been in the parking lot for months. After about 2 months, every single manager in the building had their expensive cars keyed. Next story. I'm not a boss, but I worked as a bouncer at this bar venue that did special events. This one night, we had this Chippendale stripper come to an event. We had a new guy start on this shift who was a bit older than the rest of the employees. During the show, he starts stripping in the crowd collecting tips instead of working. The Chippendale's manager gets pissed and starts yelling at him, saying he's stealing his stripper's money. After that, he stops stripping but keeps just flirting with women in the crowd and not working at all. Near the end of the night, we start cleaning up and notice we can't find the new employee. Someone takes the trash out to the dumpster and sees he's effing some chick in his car. 20 minutes later, he walks back in like nothing happened. But then instead of helping finish cleaning, gets in an argument that lasts the rest of the shift with one of the bartenders because I guess he was sexually harassing her all night. Also, I find out he is married and has a kid. My boss called him and fired him the next day. He didn't understand why, apparently. Next story. Well, I'm not a boss anymore, but I got a story. Worked at a wing zone in college, managed for a little while, had a sport high-energy kid working as a cook one night. He was into science experiment type pranks. One night, when I wasn't paying attention to him and was focusing on orders going out, he got caught up on his cooking and wanted to eat dinner. He went next door to Publix and bought something to eat along with some dry ice they keep stored by the freezer section. He had talked up making a dry ice bomb earlier, which I figured he would do outside, but once he got back, he disappeared. He and a driver ran out front and grabbed me on the way out. Once we got out of the store, there was the loudest sound I've heard, like gunshots or firecrackers at close range, and all the doors in the store and walk-in coolers flew open for a second when the blast hit. We go back in and walk to the cooler. Nothing seemed any different though, and the dry ice bomb was gone. Finally, someone looks up and lo and behold, a 20-ounce bottle stuck straight into the stainless steel ceiling of the cooler. The kid had to hang his weight on it to pull it out. I can't say I was mad because no one or thing was hurt, and it's not my store. I was impressed and encouraged the scientific spirit. Just next time, do it outside. It's people like that kid that make life kind of fun. I hope he became a badass science teacher. Next story was middle management at my old job. I had a team below me, but plenty of awful people above me. had one of my people specifically request only closing shifts because it was easier on her family for childcare purposes. After a month of this, she bickered at my effing awful boss about no shift diversity. He talked with me about it, ignored the fact that she had requested it, and demanded I give her day shifts. So I gave her 3 day shifts. She missed all of them, blamed me for not giving her the night shifts that she wanted. My FWAD boss yelled at me for giving her day shifts too, despite me telling him this would happen when he forced me to do it initially. Then fired the girl for missing so many shifts. She recruited 5 guys, the father of her various children, to come yell at me for ruining her source of income. Next story. One of my employees had a bonfire at his house. I was there with some of the other employees till pretty late. Got a call early the next morning from the employee that was at the party who was supposed to open. Said he was sick and wasn't going to be coming in. And I said, "Dude, I just saw you a few hours ago, remember? You'd better be at work." And I ended up firing him a few months later. Next story. Gather around, children, I shall tell you a tale. I was working for a company that did catastrophic insurance claims. Basically, if a tornado or hurricane hit town Y, they would send a whole F-load of us out there to adjust all of the claims due to massive property damage. They'd fly in, put us up in hotel rooms, we'd bring our laptops, and we would just adjust claims all day and night to get that crap underway. Our company used to keep a Rolodex of adjusters for whenever the need arose. We weren't an insurance carrier. We were an independent company, so most of the adjusters weren't getting paid unless there was work. So it made for a nice part-time gig for self-employed adjusters. Anyway, I meet up with my new team at the airport, some regulars, some new folks. We're going to Wisconsin following a tornado. One of my new recruits is a kid. He was 19, who was wearing an oversized t-shirt and cargo pants. So I'm starting to wonder if this kid lied on his resume or his dad is actually the adjuster and he showed up in his place. Nope, adjuster. Has a license. Went to school for it. Has specialty certs. But this is his first ever CAT team and he's only been in the business for about 2 months. Well, we all have to start somewhere, right? So we arrive in rural Wisconsin, and they put us all up in a Super 8 hotel, the only hotel for miles. It was a decent place, pretty new and very clean. From the time our boots hit the ground, we are adjusting claims, and the kid proves reasonably competent at his job. Got quite a future. What we didn't account for was that he was completely lacking in emotional maturity to be doing this sort of work this far away from home. After 2 days, he got incredibly mopey because he missed his girlfriend. Then he started snapping at people, us and clients, because he was convinced she was cheating on him. So out of a combination of spite and loneliness, he decides to go F a local, as many locals are willing to F him actually. He ravaged that town. He effed a waitress at the only restaurant within walking distance. He effed a fellow adjuster who was married. He effed an adjuster from another company who was in a town. He effed a housekeeper at the hotel. He effed the 50-year-old divorced manager at the hotel. We had been gone for a total of 4 days. On day 9, we were just out shy of 2 weeks. He's gone. I don't mean mentally, I mean he disappears. After a few hours of me thinking someone shot him because he was caught effing their wife, I find out that he changed his return plane ticket to leave that morning. He just left and went home because he couldn't take being without his girlfriend any longer, who was still in high school. Making matters worse, I had to rent his room because they refused to rent rooms to anyone under 21. Then the manager, the one he effed, calls me into the room. The room is trashed. It smells like sex and weed. Every surface was sticky with what we believed to be Mountain Dew, and there was a mountain of self-pleasure tissues cast to the side of the bed with a fine. Dried used condoms crust forming on top of it. Garbage can was filled with old pizza covered in bugs. There were half-eaten sandwiches under the bed. The mirror was broken. Someone took a crap in the tank of the toilet. Adult content was scattered everywhere. He put up a do not disturb sign on his first day and never let them clean the place. On top of the mess, he had also been using the room phone, cell service was crap, to call across the country to talk to his girlfriend all night. Next story. I worked in a call center, which should be all that needs to be said. I once caught an agent cutting out lines of coke and then snorting them. I caught countless agents breaking apart pot to roll up in joints, blunts, pack a bowl. I had a girl walk into one of my training sessions, grab the wastebasket, and proceed to pull all of her weave out. Had a girl disappear from my training class, and we later found her passed out in a puddle of her own crap, piss, and vomit in the handicapped stall in the bathroom. Had a lady who was too damn lazy to get up and walk to the restroom, so she decided to just crap her pants at her desk and then proceed to shake the turd out of her pant leg. And I have so many stories from that place. I've seriously considered writing a screenplay. Next story. I worked at a casino in California, in food and beverage. We had just hired a kid who was fresh out from culinary school. He didn't know anything at all, so he started back making the pub food. Something like his third night, I'm outside smoking, and I see him walking by with 2 security guys. This can't be good. Turns out the genius had decided to go take his lunch break, meet his friend in the parking lot, and drive around the parking lot smoking weed. You know,
the casino parking lot full of cameras, other employees, security guards, etc., etc. And mind you, you could get away with plenty of stuff in your car, Lord knows I did in my days, so he must have been so painfully obvious as this was also like 6 p.m. and still dusk outside. Come on, man. Next story. Slammed on a Sunday night, lying to the effing door, known and belligerent homeless guy walks in and stands at the counter and starts asking for food. We are a move with the food barbecue joint, so all employees are actively assisting customers. I tell him I will help out later. He goes ballistic, ranting and raving. My employee, 5'4" Hawaiian guy, tells him to scram, it's too busy. Homeless guy goes ballistic and starts cursing at him. Little Hawaiian guy then drops his knife, walks over to the counter, and pushes this 6-foot homeless guy so hard he goes flying into some tables. Not a chance to get up. Hawaiian backs up and shoves him all the way out. I mean literally kicked out of the restaurant. I was pissed and relieved at the same time. I couldn't send him home, too busy, but he just jumped back on the line and that was the end of that. I should have punished him, but I secretly thought it was brilliant. So I just have home a verbal lashing later and I left it at that. Next story. Two things, same store. I used to be a manager of a high-volume Starbucks inside of Target, and I had hired this 18-year-old girl who was very perky and energetic, so I thought she would be a great fit. She went through training with no problem, was one of my top baristas, and helped me a lot with general keeping of the store. About 3 months in, though, her crazy started coming out. She was diabetic and would intentionally leave her insulin home just so she'd have a dramatic episode at the store. She'd start crying in the middle of her shift to get attention from customers, and there was one time that she wanted to go home early, but there was no one to cover for her, so she made herself throw up in the sink in the back room. Because the other two things were sensitive subjects, I can't write someone up for being diabetic or dealing with mental illness if that's what she was dealing with, I couldn't do a whole lot about her. That was until one day I came to work, and my loss prevention team for Target was escorting one of my other employees out of the building. I was confused and wondered what the hell was happening, but they weren't able to disclose anything at the time. Later that day, the crazy girl also gets escorted out. Still, nothing was said to me. As the days went on, I saw every single one of my employees get escorted out with the exception of 2, who were also later fired. Turns out, Crazy Girl had put together this big operation of stealing pastries and sandwiches from the store and writing them off at the end of the night. Because Target differs from Starbucks, we didn't have a solid way of monitoring that kind of thing because it gets thrown into the garbage at closing instead of counted and donated. So, I lost 8 out of 8 of my employees in under 1 week because of pastry theft. I wasn't told anything about it at first because they were investigating me as well, and they didn't want to disclose in case I was also guilty. Next story. Not a boss here, but we had someone email one of the lawyers of the company we were securing. We worked as contracted security officers and asked them about legal advice on suing the company that the lawyer worked for. This is also the same person who was caught multiple times for sleeping while on duty, receiving multiple complaints about his actions and smell. He lived out of his car and rarely bathed, as well as asking different associates for money to buy food, and then asking the same associates the same day if they can share the food that they're eating. Eventually, the boss figured out how big of a piece of crap this guy was and fired him. About a month or so later, he got arrested for drugs. Next story. One time, there was this guy who was a temp at this small 30-man proto shop in Livonia. He always wanted to be hired in full-time. One day, he hatched a plan. He came in very early one morning and put up motivational signs all over the building. He made them himself out of cardboard and markers, the kind of thing you'd expect to see "will work for food" written on. The poster said things like, "If you're not going to give 100% today, go home and I'll get someone who will." And "What did you do to earn your check today?" He signed them all with the owner's name. Well, we hired him. It was hilarious. But as soon as he was full-time, he started shirking and demanding raises. I guess he assumed he could just join the UAW and get all kinds of benefits after he was hired. But we were just a small shop and didn't even have health insurance. He was fired about a week later, and we were still fighting hidden motivational posters for a month. Next story. We hired a guy from another firm. He worked for us for 2 weeks, then called in sick for several days. Couldn't reach him. He was a friend of another employee since they had worked together previously at the firm, so he tried to reach him since HR couldn't get a response. Then finally hear from the guy, and he comes in another 2 days, then calls in sick another 5 days in a row. Turns out he never quit his other job at the firm and was using his vacation to try us out and then taking sick days to come into work for us. We found out when their principal called ours when they put 2 and 2 together since he left our company's new hire paperwork out on his desk. He was then fired on the spot from there, and we told him to never come back.
He was pretty much blackballed in the industry too. Guy had a wife and 4 kids and lost all benefits. Stupid move, but seemed like a good plan, I suppose. He just didn't play it out right. Next story. Wednesday before Thanksgiving, busy as hell, a customer comes up to tell me their server just dropped a platter of nachos on the ground in front of them, yelled the F word in front of the family, then walked away without cleaning up any of it. Pull her aside, and she is visibly drunk all of a sudden. And I ask her if she has been drinking, and she screams in my face, "You want to go to war, biznatch?" So I fire her on the spot. Found out she did 7 shots in about 30 minutes. Next story. I had a dishwasher come in on acid while I was a night manager at a restaurant. He was right out of high school and started to experiment with drugs a little more. I knew all about it, but always told him to keep it out of the store. Anyway, he comes in and confronts me immediately, saying he's having a bad trip. I told him that if he could stay his entire shift, I wouldn't fire him. He spends the whole time switching between doing dishes and crying under the sink. I think it was punishment enough. He was a good worker after that. Next story. I was a kitchen manager, and one night I was out on our back dock and saw that someone had left a full trash can sitting out beside the dumpster. I went over and started to lift the trash can to dump it in the dumpster when the back door opened, and one of my cooks walked out. He immediately rushed over, insisting that I not dump the trash and let him do it because it's too heavy for you. I don't want to see you get hurt. Let me do it. Now, I am a small female, but I'm tough, and I've been lifting heavy trash cans for years. Well, the guys looked on and never batted an eye, so I thought that was strange, but whatever. I just kind of put it in the back of my mind. A couple of hours later, we were closed and my employees were all leaving for the night, while I was in the office doing the deposit and finishing up all of the end-of-day stuff. The same cook from before poked his head in the office to say goodnight, then, instead of heading out through the front like everyone else had done, proceeded to head out the back door through a dark kitchen where all the lights had already been shut off. I thought that was strange too, so I turned to the monitor which showed all of the cameras that we had throughout the restaurant and pulled up the camera for the back dock. Sure enough, the cook exited through the back door, then went behind the dumpster out of camera range, retrieved a duffel bag that was stashed back there, and left. From there, I pulled up the footage from the trash can incident from earlier and could see that as soon as I went back inside, the cook looked around, then dug through the trash and pulled out something that he had buried, and took it behind the dumpster. By pulling up the footage from different cameras, I was able to see that earlier in the night he had taken the trash can into the walk-in freezer where there are no cameras, then exits with the same trash can a few minutes later and pushes it out on the back door, where I came out and saw it about 10 minutes later. It all made sense now, so I burned a copy of all the footage that I had found in sequence and left a copy of the DVD for my general manager, who was opening in the morning, with a note that read, "Watch this, I think I just solved our food cost problem." Well, the GM did watch the DVD, then called the cook into the office, had him watch the DVD, then asked him to sign his termination notice. The cook's defense was that I had set him up. He said that he had dropped some steaks on the floor and they weren't able to be used. So he asked me if he could take them home, and I said yes. Then I decided to set him up for stealing because I'm a B-word. I like to imagine that the conversation went something like this, with him saying, "Hey, can I take these unusable steaks home?" You most certainly can, but only if you bury them in the trash and store them in your duffel bag behind the dumpster for a couple of hours in the sweltering heat of mid-August. Okay, sounds reasonable. Next story. I used to supervise a Forest Service recreation crew. Because we all worked weekends, we had different weekdays off. One of my first season crew members was starting to show himself as a bit of a screw-up, and one Monday, one of my other crew members came in and said, "What happened to his truck?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "It's wrecked." And I said, "I beg your pardon?" So we went down to our garage, and there's the truck, and it looks like someone has taken a baseball bat to it on the passenger side and the hood and cab and top of the tailgate. The driver's side is fine, though. The kid had gone out to do his work, some crazy crap happened, and then rather than reporting it to me, he just parked the truck and went home. My boss and I talked about it, and we decided the kid would get fired when he came back to work on Wednesday, which was my day off. When I came back to work, X was gone, and I asked my boss, "So how'd the truck get wrecked?" And he said, "I never asked him." So to this day, I still have no idea, and it drives me a little crazy. So going off of what I said earlier, the boss must be a Redditor, because sometimes these folks do not want to ask follow-up questions. They will leave you cliffhanging. Anyway, next story. Next story. I run a small renovation carpentry business. I've hired plenty of airheads and idiots off Craigslist, or even better, had them sent to me by a temporary labor agency when I needed someone to do the manual labor. Here's some of the more memorable ones. Asked a labor agency to send me a guy to help dig some footings with a shovel while I worked a small cat excavator. 2 Middle Eastern-looking guys show up, one took off his jacket, and he had only one arm. The other guy was there to help him out. I kid you not. Then I hired a cousin of mine to do ground cleanup who has a history of mental illness. I was trying to do him a favor. We'd re-roofed a house and it was his job to clean up the old material on the ground. I came around the corner one morning and spied on him for a bit to see how he was doing. He'd taken one half of an aluminum extension ladder apart from the other half and was trying to stand it up on its own to climb up it and grab a piece of tar paper hanging from a telephone line that went from the side of the house to the alley. Again, he was trying to stand a piece of ladder up on its own to climb up and grab some garbage hanging from a wire. This wasn't an A-frame ladder that's supposed to stand on its own either. Then another laborer that was sent to me threw leftover bundles of shingles off of a roof down onto the paving stone driveway of the house, breaking a bunch and leaving black tar scuff marks all over it. He also threw one of my radios off the roof, as well as a circular saw. His logic was, when I said, "Hey, get the leftover material off the roof and the leftover tools," he must have heard, "Just stand by the gutter edge and throw them off." Then we showed up in my truck one morning to our job site, and I had called for a laborer to help dig for the day while we sat in the truck drinking coffee. Before we started, there was a toothless hobo collecting cans out of people's garbages in the alleyway. When we get out to set up for the day, turns out this was the guy who was supposed to be our laborer. I've had other incidents with hobo laborers who've been sent to me who do things like ask neighbors if they can borrow $20. Then did a roof years ago where another laborer realized the 40-foot aluminum extension ladder was going to be worth more than what he made that day. So when we were on the other side of the roof, he quietly untied the ladder, took it down, and ran off with it, leaving us stranded on the roof. We eventually got down and spent the afternoon driving around looking for this guy. He was literally nowhere to be found. I never got my ladder back, even after harassing the temp agency who sent me this guy and called the cops. Then an employee of mine was tasked with removing a hornet's nest from the soffit of a place that we were working on. I bought him a can of wasp and hornet killing crap and assumed he'd use it like it said to do so on the can. Instead, I found him hosing the roof and soffit down with the homeowner's garden hose because he allegedly lit the stuff on fire while he was spraying it into the wooden soffit and almost burned the house down. Luckily, the owner wasn't home that day. But yeah, too many other stories to even recount. Most of the time, they've involved idiots who are sent to me by labor agencies. Although I've listed a bunch here, this is all over the span of nearly 20 years now that I've been working in construction and doing business. There are lots of great laborers just looking for temporary or quick work, and I've even hired a few who were awesome. However, labor agencies have sent me tons of guys who are drug addicts, thieves, or just plain hobos who can never manage to keep their crap together, even while they're just there with us for 8 hours. A lot of them like to swear and yell really loud and get carried away. I've almost come to blows with at least 2 of them. I've always bickered at the temp agencies who send me guys like this, but more often than not, they don't even realize the caliber of worker they're sending people until there's a problem. But I just have too many stories to tell working in construction. My idea is that once I am retired in another 20 years or so, I'll have enough to write a book about it all. The show The Office is entertaining in its own way, but I've always wanted to see a similar show that's more vulgar about the types of idiots you're stuck with working in construction. Next story. Once upon a time, I was a store manager of a very popular shoe store located in almost every mall in America. This store was generated toward youth culture, so we had a ton of vibrant lights hanging from the ceiling. We had TVs that played music videos, and we had to blast the music. With that being said, most of my employees were teenagers. It was a Saturday night, and we were much busier than anticipated, so I had to call an extra person in. It takes him about an hour to get to work, and he's acting very strange though. This kid is usually very on top of his game. Another hour passes by, and I walk into my stockroom to pull a pair of shoes for a customer. And I find this kid huddled in the corner, crying his eyes out. He looks like someone told him his entire family had been murdered. I promptly ask him what is wrong. I'm worried about the kid. And he looks at me and he says, "I'm so sorry, but I took a bunch of acid before I agreed to take the shift. I thought I could handle it, but I'm scared crapless of these customers, these lights, and this awful music." Facepalm. I started laughing so hard I started to cry. I sent the poor child home. Didn't write him up. Didn't fire him that time, but it was too funny, and he really did try. A+ for effort. Next story. Announced random drug screens to the floor workers. One of them says nope and runs out of the building. I'm talking dead on Summer Olympics sprint. He makes it to the parking lot, jumps into his car, and just stays there. We don't have time to catch up to him, he was a little speedy devil, before he reemerges with a smile, hands me a sheet of line paper that says in his handwriting, and very sloppily, that he is exempt from random drug screens per his employment letter signed by the president of our company. He then proceeds to walk smugly back to his workstation. Best part of it is that I know for a fact that the president has never even met the worker because, you guessed it, I am the president of our company. Next story. I wasn't a boss, but I was a lead. I spent the day getting 2 root canals, and when I get back to work, this girl asked me for pain medicine because she was having tooth pain, allegedly. Playing dumb, I said, sure, I have ibuprofen in my bag. Throughout the day, she asked for something stronger, wink wink, and finally, I snapped. My mouth was throbbing, she was irritating the F out of me, and I said loudly, in front of my bosses, I'm not giving you my much-needed Percocet, you junkie. And 2 days later, she got wasted at work and spent a good half hour puking her guts out in the bathroom. She was escorted out immediately afterwards. We work with law enforcement and had to communicate with 911 dispatch, so it's not like it was Taco Bell where you're expected to be effed up. Next story. I used to be a manager in a union environment. Holy crap, was that a nightmare. I had a guy not shower for 3 weeks in protest because he was unhappy with the new job that he had bid into. He smelled so terrible. I had to bring him in and his union steward in to talk to him. I left them in my office and watched them writhe in the stench from the camera monitors in another office. I had an employee that would file a grievance over every little issue, and of course, they usually win, so I would end up having to pay him for lost time, overtime, etc. So we eventually just gave him a cushy job not doing anything. We basically paid him just not to give us any trouble. I know it's really stupid, but it was the easiest way. Next, he was one of those guys that gave you an inch and he takes a mile. So he was maxed out at $32.50 an hour, plus 10 hours of overtime a week, and was the highest tenured employee. And all he had to do was push a broom around the warehouse, and he managed to F that up. Then a supervisor discovered that he had starting an ongoing poker game behind a bunch of boxes in a warehouse, so we posted a hidden camera in this area. We gathered 2 weeks worth of poker games with audio. This was all while on the clock and included a rotating cast of employees, anywhere from 4 to 8 players at a time, gambling for real money, and our godfather was getting paid by employees just to get into the game. When it was all said and done, we fired him and 3 other employees, numbers 1, 2, 4, and 5 on the tenure list. 11 other employees got write-ups. We met with the union rep and we told them that we had these guys on camera admitting to theft of product, company supplies, and time. We had them for gambling, drinking on the clock, and violating a host of company policies and CBA rules. We decided to ask for the moon, so we had negotiating power. That's how unions work. So instead of just firing them and negotiating down to a suspension, we informed them that we were going to press charges and seek compensation for all lost product, time, etc. It was totaling in the tens of thousands of dollars and likely jail time. They agreed to voluntarily resign if we didn't press charges, though. And this godfather character had the balls to ask for a severance package. What a dumbass. He made way more money than any of my supervisors and did almost zero work, and he pissed it all away.
Alright, so like many of you, I'm already starting to wonder, what job does OP have here? Because I would like to work there, because it seems like if you just stick around long enough and complain and don't get caught, you'll just get paid egregious amounts of money to do almost nothing. I would like to work there, and fellow viewers, I would like you there with me. We can chat and chill and, I don't know, steal from the store if you're down. Anyway, but guys, we're at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. Feel free to share your experiences if you got any relevant stories, but thank you for watching, commenting. Have a really good day, and bye-bye!